Okay. So hi everyone. Let me just share my screen here. Hope everyone can see that. Okay. So hi everyone. Welcome to the first of our two-part career conversation series. Today's session will be on internships, where we will be discussing their benefits, drawbacks, keys to constructive internship experience, and hopefully anything and everything you want to explore today. Before we begin, I just want to go over some housekeeping. I'm recording this webinar and its transcript as usual, which will be available online after the event, and we'll share them with you over an email afterwards, as well as on CrowdSolve. So when you're not asking questions today, please mute yourself to avoid any distractions. However, anytime you would like to jump in with a question, I encourage you to turn both your mic and camera on. And to make things easier on us during the panel discussion, if you have a question, please use the hand raising function in the toolbar on the Zoom toolbar, and we will call upon you. Additionally, the chat will be open to questions and comments from our audience throughout the event. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Jackie Garcia, and she'll be there to address any questions. So if you would like to send them anonymously, just please send them to Jackie. Otherwise, send them to the room, address the speaker you would like to ask. And I encourage our speakers to engage in the chat if they find the time as well. So we have a slightly longer session for you today with a lot of interactive elements and a different structure than what you might be used to from us. So here's the agenda. You can all see the screen, yeah? And we're currently going through the introductions. We'll then quickly have a benchmark poll to figure out where everyone stands on internships before we have some opening remarks from our team's very own intern, Emil Maling. And then diving into some introductions of our panelists today. We'll have a couple more questions to ask you over Mentimeter, and then we'll be diving headlong into the meat of today's event, the panel discussion. Finally, we'll have some closing polls and our usual closing elements. But I won't hold up processes any further, so let's hear about everyone's previous experience with internships. So Jackie, do you mind launching that participant poll? And hopefully this helps us figure out where everyone stands on the topic. Okay. Just give everyone a few seconds to answer that. It seems like we have a pretty good mix. So the options were, I've never done an internship. I'm currently doing an internship. I've completed an internship in the past, and I pursued internships, but in the past, but never landed one. And it seems we have a good mix of 50% who have done internships in the past, completed them. 33% have never done an internship, and one person in the room so far is currently doing an internship. So we have a big spread, and hopefully this gives us a good basis to ask any questions for our speakers today on, but just for everyone to keep in mind throughout the event. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so before we begin, we'll be discussing our internship opportunities today, and we thought essential to this process would be to hear from an intern themselves. We recently had a fantastic member of our team leave, our intern Emil. You might have seen him host one of the webinars last year. Before he left, he wanted to record some of his personal advice about internships for you all to take away. So I hope this is helpful. I think I might just need to stop and just share my audio for a second, so just bear with me. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Emil. I just recently ended my internship at Energy Saving Trust, or EST. as you might know it. I would like to tell you a bit about my experience working as an intern and what you can expect from an internship, pretty much. So yeah, let's get started. So yeah, how I personally got my internship. Um, you first gotta start discovering your options. For me personally, I wanted to go abroad. I'm from Denmark, and I knew that I wanted to go to an English speaking country just to um, improve my English and adapt to a new working culture and just get out of my personal comfort zone. Yeah, you gotta discover your options. You gotta see like what kind of industry wanna do I wanna like work in. What do I actually want to do on a day-to-day basis? Do you want to do marketing stuff? Do you want to do technology development and etc. Um, so yeah, when you finally have um, been set on what you want to do and found some interesting companies that you are excited to work for, you should start applying. But in my case, I did it through an agency, which pretty much means that. So after I did all of the discovering companies and options and stuff like that for me to do, I decided to take the approach of applying through an agency, which could help me narrow down like companies in London specifically. So what they did for me was actually to like um, ask me a ton of questions in terms of what I wanted to do to again narrow down the options, and then a internship offer came through, and that was from EST, which was very exciting. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting my internship. So when you then get that first initial contact with the organization, you want to be prepared for the interview, which is a quite essential thing about the entire process. It's important that you do some research before the interview, just so you sort of have a grasp of what they are actually doing. And more importantly, you should be very clear about what you can actually bring to the table. Um, I believe I've been told at least like there are many people that are not that um, specific about what they actually can do. But then again, it also depends on what kind of internship you're looking for. So in my case, it was a more general internship. So I got to work in different departments and stuff like that and work on different tasks and so on. But if you are more, let's say, into data analysis, then you obviously want to be more specific about, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I want to work on. But that wasn't relevant in my personal case. But anyway, yeah, so as I said, I moved to a foreign country, which was very exciting. Um, and as part of that, you gotta adapt to a new working culture. Um, that was very frightening at first. Also, the fact that I was this was pretty much my first real job position. So yeah, it was exciting. It was a lot to take in and a lot to adapt to and so on. But and then the fact that you had to speak in a foreign language, it really takes a toll on you. It's very exhausting, but it's great. You improve your second language or whatever maybe you already speak English as your native language, but I don't. Um, and then comes the factor of applying for a visa. So yeah, that's a very very long process. So if you are planning to go to the UK, for example, you gotta start your visa application as soon as possible. Um, because, as I mentioned, it's a very long process, and you don't want to get stuck in that process and end up not going because it drags out and stuff like that. But yeah, so when it comes to the benefits of having done an internship, um, I can personally say that I've learned a lot. I stayed at EST for 3 months, which was awesome all the way through. Even during COVID and all of that, it was still a great experience. Well, just the fact that I lived in London, but I also got to go into the office actually as much as I wanted. And what you get out of it is that you get familiar with the day to day operations. And what I mean by that is you are suddenly going to work like a real job. You're going to work from 9 to 5. Um, and just the fact that you get involved in the processes, you get involved in how the planning works and operates, that is a very valuable lesson that you get out of it. And EST that I did my internship at, they were great at having planned a schedule beforehand, meaning that I got to work in different departments and on different teams. And I have a bachelor's in IT, for example, so I got to work in IT for a couple of weeks, and that was great. That was so valuable to me personally because all I had done previously was to read in a book and look into a book and study and stuff like that. So just being a part of that team for a couple of weeks, that gave me so much more than it would have given me just staying home studying. Um, and yeah, just working full time, it really prepares you for the future and widening your skill set as well. I worked on the design challenge as well, facilitating different webinars and planning ahead of time and scouting for new participants and stuff like that. And just, yeah, again, pretty much the same thing, just being a part of the day to day work that was so beneficial and very, very giving to me. So yeah. But anyway, my advice for entering an internship, um, just to recap, um, define your expectations. What do you want to get out of the internship? Apply for a wide range of internship. Um, just to make sure that you are actually gonna end up landing an internship. And if you want to move to a foreign country, you should apply for the visa as soon as possible. And of course, prepare for the job interview. And it's gonna be a lot of fun when you finally land the internship, and you're gonna get so many new experiences, and you're gonna get so much more professional in your path of getting out in the job market later on. So yeah, just dive into it, learn, and have fun. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to Emil. That was our intern Emil, if you joined in that time. It was great to hear some experience from a real intern who's just been through it and shared his full story. And I hope that's a little helpful to all of you to hear how you might approach this experience. Emil also has a very soothing voice, so that was nice. Um,
Hi everyone.
Not again. There we go. So now I won't keep you waiting any longer. We have a few wonderful speakers today. You may have read a bit about them in our invitational email, but I was hoping they could come off mute for a moment and introduce themselves and what their experience with internships has been so far. You may notice that we are missing one speaker from the invitations, Max Garnick. He has fallen ill with COVID. We wish him good health. He was our representative who recently undertook an internship and now has progressed quite far in his career. To try fill his shoes, I will be sharing my own experience with internships while for the questions that we originally meant for him. If you have any questions that you meant to direct towards Max, just please feel free to ask me them, or I can ask Max over email. But without further ado, maybe we could start with Rachel Menary.
Hi everybody. So my name's Rachel Menary. I'm the Training Scheme Development Manager for Energy Saving Trust. I joined in September and I've been setting up apprenticeships and looking at internships for Energy Saving Trust as well as graduate programs going forward. My experience of internships is that I have worked with interns in places like BT, Marker Study, Absolute Works, and I've noticed some of the things around internships in terms of making people more marketable and getting people better acquainted with the workplace and boosting their skills. And we'll be talking to you a bit more about that later on.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, happy to have you here today. Next up, we have Prashant. Prashant, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Thanks, Rachel. Good to meet you and all of you here. I'm Prashant. I work with SELCO Foundation and I've been working with here for over 5 years now. One of my portfolios is looking at university engagements and working with youth networks. We work in sustainable and decentralized renewable energy, and then my experience in internships have been always, more than 30 to 40% of any kind of interns or fellows who come in SELCO, we have seen that they have become our future leads. And the very first intern which joined is currently directing SELCO Foundation. So that's our experiences. And then we see internships and these kind of opportunities of engaging with universities or youth as a future investment, not just from HR perspective, but also as future champions. So I'll stop here and then we'll hear from Ketaki and then we can discuss it.
Great to hear you have so much experience working with many interns, Prashant. Next, can we hear from Ketaki?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everybody. I'm Ketaki. I work with Shortlist, which is a recruitment agency. I've been here for about 2 years, and for most of it, I've been working with clean energy companies in sub-Saharan Africa, helping them hire entry-level candidates, a mix of interns and full-time candidates. So I'm excited to share those learnings and that experience with everybody here. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ketaki. Okay, but before we go into the questions, we drill the questions into the speakers. We have a few questions for all the participants. So we have a Mentimeter poll set up that you can go to either by scanning this QR code with your phone or going to menti.com and entering the code 645-41923. So if everyone could just take a moment and do that, I think I'll do that as well. If I can just find the phone. I'll leave the code up for a moment for everyone to get there. Let me know if you have any questions about any of that. And the first question will just ask you for your initial thoughts on internships, 3 words that you think of. And just answer those quickly. You don't have to spend too much time thinking about them. We just want to hear your initial thoughts. So just jot them down quickly. So we have 3 words so far. Opportunities, fresh ideas, and development. Those are great. I think it's really important also fresh ideas because you're bringing those to the organization. It's not just what the internship is bringing to you. Experience, interest, salary. That's all And hopefully this builds up a little bit of a word cloud so that we can see what everyone's thoughts around the subject are. So just keep them coming. And if you're struggling to find the code, it's just at the top of this screen as well. This is menti.com. Boundary pushing. Nice one, I like that one. Explore, experience. Yeah, these are all great. Internships can be a great way to explore whether the career that you were thinking of is right for you, to gain the experience that you need to enter the job market more formally. Gaining skills. Okay. Keep them coming. And this will be open. So if you're watching the recording online, you can enter these as you can keep on entering things into this word cloud, and they'll be shared with the slides. And if I just change over to the next question. Familiar with workload? Okay, they're still coming. I'm just gonna keep reading them. Self-motivation, know the industry. I think these are all great. And I think a lot of them are about learning about, and exposure is a big one right now. So I think a few people have put in exposure. It's really about investigating the job that you're hoping to enter, see if it's right for you. Okay. Mentorship is one. And that's, I think, a key thing about internship is you can begin to develop mentorship relationships with those working in the organization. Training. Okay, well, I'll keep this up and everyone can look back afterwards. And if the speakers notice anything here that they want to pick up on during the questions, let me just move on to the next one. This will pop up on the same window. Oh, sorry. And this is just what questions do you have about internships? And hopefully we can touch on these during the session today. Hopefully they can be addressed. And if not, though, we can bring them up at the end. And if you think of any questions after this little session, feel free to send them in the chat. But I just want to get some initial thoughts about what your questions about internships are. Again, you don't have to put in too much thought, just what first comes to your mind. Oops. We seem to have lost that question, but I still have it open in my other window. We still haven't received any new ones. Let me just switch it on here.
I cannot see it on my side. I don't know if it's the same for everybody.
It's not opening for you, the new question.
Not on Mentimeter. Does anybody have the same problem? Or can you see it and it's only on me? Okay, now it's working. Thank you.
Oh, I think we have some chat messages as well. Okay, yeah, seems like everyone just received the question now, so I'll just leave this up for another couple minutes. Sorry, may you elaborate on salary? How as interns should they think of salary? And I think this will be, I have a question set up for the speakers today about what we think about paid internships and the possibility of entering them, whether it's important that interns should be paid. And I'll be asking the everyone in the room as well through a poll. So hopefully that comes up. What is the connection between class learning and the real world industry/business environment? Okay, I think that's a great one. And do internships count the experience? I'm doing an MSc after my 7-year experience. What would that count? Okay, I think that's a great one, especially, I mean, if you're doing an MSc in a new field, perhaps an internship is required for you to gain new experience if your past experience was irrelevant, but hopefully you can enter into a full-time position without. What are some of the points that we should not miss when writing cover letters? Any suggestions? I think that's a great one as well. When applying for internships, cover letters can be really important, especially if we don't have the experience to present on our CV yet. I think a cover letter can be really important. Does internships also count as cognate experiences? I think there are also learning experiences, internships, and you can, it's a lot about gaining that new experience, and internships should be part learning, part working. How do they work in engineering firms? Can you intern with the prospect of getting a job at a company? If so, does it work? Hopefully one of our panelists today can answer that. I don't quite know about engineering internships, but I think these are all great questions and it gets your juices flowing. So hopefully these can come up again when we're going through the panel discussion with our panelists, and hopefully they can answer some of these. But I'm just going to exit the Mentimeter now. And move on to our panel discussion. Let me see. If we can move past this. There we go. Okay. And now we can go into our questions for our speakers. I've stopped screen sharing, I think, which is what I am to do, yeah. I just want to hear some, I just have some questions for our panelists, and hopefully we can go through these, and perhaps you can keep the answers down to 2 minutes each, speakers, and feel free to engage with each other, and for our participants to ask questions in the chat or unmute yourself. So first was meant for Max and Rachel, so maybe I'll offer a bit of my experience as well. But I found after finishing my university career, I was unable to find work for quite some time because of the additional experience required of entry-level positions. And I did internships during university, but after my master's, I felt like employers all needed me to have more experience than I had at the time. And while I did not feel like I wanted to do some sort of unpaid position, or could do one, I eventually, after working a job that I felt wasn't really going anywhere, I decided to take a plunge and take an internship opportunity, and go for one. And I landed one, and I felt like now this led me to my job here. I mean, without the internship I had done, I don't think I would have been able to work at EST. And I think in that way, it was really important for my career development. And that brings me to the question for Rachel. Are internships necessary for people looking to start a career in the sector today?
I think internships can be seen as one part of a marketable CV. If you think of your kind of CV as, you know, your front piece to show off what you've done in recent years, whether that's educationally, work-wise, sports, hobbies, projects, whatever you've been doing in the previous years, that's what your CV is showing off. An internship can be a really valuable part of that, whether it's paid or not. And I'm very much in favour of paid internships going forward, and that's something that Energy Saving Trust will be supporting going forward, because as an equity thing, we feel that people should be paid for the work that they are doing. However, I realise that's not always realistic for people in the environments they are in. And as Sean has found, it's sometimes difficult to get work, even if you've got all the skills and qualities that an employer is looking for. So sometimes it's about getting your foot in the door, and sometimes an unpaid internship can be a way to go in. A company gets to try you out basically for kind of a limited period of time, and you get the opportunity to really impress them in that period of time. So you can use it as an opportunity to build on your skills, build on your marketability, and use it as a way to network for future jobs. I'm sure Sean did that in terms of connecting with other people in the business, showing what he'd got to offer in terms of skills, qualities, experiences, things like that. So an internship can be a really valuable tool if you view it as a means to an end, if that makes sense. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, answers it beautifully. I completely agree. I think when I was doing my internship, it was really a chance to kind of seize the day and make all the connections I could get, things like that. So I completely agree with that, Rachel. And before I ask a question of the whole group here, there are definitely drawbacks to internships. You typically end up with work that other people might not be interested in doing. The tasks can be quite boring. Your position can be unpaid or low paying, and there's not even a guarantee that it will lead to a full-time position. And so these are some drawbacks I was thinking of, but what do you see as the key benefits of undertaking an internship? And I wanted to ask the whole panel here today about what these key benefits are. So maybe we could start with Prashant. And if you have any drawbacks, feel free to bring those in as well.
Oh, I think one thing which one of your interns started a video which you showed definitely pointed it out. One thing, I also saw someone is doing MS after say 7 years of experience. I'm taking that they might be working till now. So one of the things is definitely testing waters in terms of if you have any interest, and then if you find an organization which is aligning to that interest. So definitely you can do an internship, which is also giving you an opportunity to not engage full time, but also see in terms of if the sector is for you or not. So that helped me when I did my fellowship. So that is the ultimate key benefit from an intern point of view. Definitely there's a benefit from company or organization point of view also, which I pointed out earlier. Looking at future champions, looking at future colleagues again. But coming back to the drawbacks, I feel there are drawbacks at both ends, both from intern side and from organization side, because definitely organization should take it seriously, and likewise the intern should also. But sometimes there's a mismatch. If an intern is in the organization and they have come for a specific work, and maybe that work is not at say par with other work which the organization is doing, and the pace is slow, then the intern might just sulk in, right? And as you mentioned, they might be just doing menial jobs, they might be coming and going and not interacting. But there is a positive side to it, because you are in an environment, there is an organization with a history, with an experience. Definitely, if they are proactive, and that comes to individuality, they can definitely still learn. No one will say no if someone comes and wants to speak to you. From organization side, again, it can be disheartening sometimes if you don't get that expectations right. Because I've seen most of the times organizations set right very high expectations from an intern, not understanding that they are coming from a fresh background, and the kind of what you define for them is very critical at that time. So hence, setting right expectations. If an intern is able to articulate at the starting, someone asked about the cover letter, right? If they are able to articulate what experience are they looking for, rather than going in a specific problem statement or project, then I think the expectations can be right for both the parties right from the start. And then there is always room to kind of explore as and when they move forward in the journey. I hope I did justice to that question, but sure, do pitch in if anyone has.
Oh yeah, that was great, Prashant. And I think he touched on a really key thing that appeared in the word cloud, which was to explore the sector and the job, and really get that exposure early on. Ketaki, would you like to take this question next?
Sure, I'd love to. I think I do agree with Prashant where it says it gives them a great opportunity to explore the sector, and also, be able to understand what works for them. But I think one of the benefits of undertaking an internship is also that it provides the candidates with that differentiation in their profile, and that's what sets them apart from their peers and others. And the kind of experience of the companies that you work for and how well you can showcase that experience is also something that would set you apart from every other graduate who's coming from your university who's done the same degree and probably would be at the same par as you. So I think that is something that an internship can really help you differentiate. And you can showcase your expertise, you can gain those skills, which then you can bring on further on in your career and be able to use them and really gain those tangible skills. And I think also maybe expanding on the exploring opportunity, this is a great time for candidates to experiment and just to understand what type of role or what type of function they'd want to work in, what sort of organization also they'd like to work in, whether what type of organization cultures they would be a good fit for, whether or not they're more comfortable in a very hierarchical, vertical organization, or whether they're more comfortable in organizations that's a little more horizontal and more fluid in nature. So I think that's where your internships play a huge role, because then you are armed with all that information and you're armed with all that experience when you're moving in, just in terms of what you want and what works for you and what doesn't.
Great, thanks, Ketaki. And I agree. I think it can be a first exposure to the workplace as well as not only just the job. So it's a great time to investigate whether the organization fit is also good. So thanks for that. Rachel, would you like to touch on it next?
Yeah, just adding to what Ketaki and Prashant have just mentioned, I think the culture of a workplace is really crucial to how you experience your day-to-day interactions. So finding out about that, finding out about what you enjoy in a workplace is really critical to how your day-to-day life is going to feel. So that's one of the big factors in it. The other two things I think are the hard skills and the soft skills. And what I mean by hard skills are the practical skills. So, how you actually interact with particular work systems, how you actually do physical pieces of work, how you produce a particular report or a document or something that the workplace needs to move forward, because they're really good evidence for future interviews. But also the soft skills. This is one of the key things that I have found, both working with apprentices, graduates and interns, is that people tend to neglect the soft skills. And these are things like how to build relationships with people in the workplace, how to have kind of things like one-to-one conversations, how to hold team meetings, how to do those kind of interactions that keep the workplace going in an effective and functional way. Sometimes that could be the piece that blocks people from getting into roles. So if you can get a really good handle on that during an intern experience, that can set you up for a future career that gives you real longevity rather than, constantly struggling to get in somewhere. And I say that from a point of view of working with a very multicultural, multi-diverse population in Coventry and Warwickshire on mental health projects. And these were some of the key barriers that people were facing at the time. So I wanted to kind of offer that as a suggestion going forward in case anybody found that useful.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I think early in one of my internships, one of the soft skills that was really beneficial for me was learning email etiquette. And just trying to email people in the organization, was a big thing for me, and I think it was helpful if you're emailing employers later on. Okay, so our next question is for Prashant and Ketaki. Oh no, sorry, it's for Rachel and Ketaki. What should an intern look for when searching for and during an internship? When hunting for an internship, what should they look for? And maybe we could start with Rachel this time.
So what I'd be looking for if I was looking for an internship today would be that they had a really robust training plan in place. Emil referenced this when he was speaking about the fact that they had a plan set up for when he came into the office about which locations he was going to be working in, what work he was going to be doing, who he was going to be interacting with. And that gives you a sense of kind of security that they both have a plan, that they're organised enough to kind of think through the work that you're going to be doing, who you might need to be connecting with, but also kind of how they present themselves in terms of their website. Have a look at that, you know, see what's out there, look at who they are, look at what they represent as people, as an organisation, look at what their values are and see whether that's going to fit with you as an intern going forward, and making sure that you're kind of reaching out to connections as well. A good way of finding out about an organisation before you're actually in it is to look up things like Glassdoor, look up things like people who work within the company on LinkedIn, and finding things on the internet about, you know, projects they've been involved with, news they've been involved with. I mean, if you look up Energy Saving Trust, you'll see the policies and things that they've been involved with recently around COP26. So you can see for various different organisations, they will highlight what they are most focused on, and then you can see whether that resonates with you as an individual and whether that's going to fit with you ethically, professionally, personally going forward. So yeah, I hope that answers that.
Yeah, and it's very key to align yourself with those key organizational values if you want to find fulfillment in your work, I think, as well. Ketaki, would you like to take this one?
Sure. First of all, completely agree with Rachel on the fact where I think how well an organization presents its internship opportunities really speaks to how invested they are in the candidates as well, and how much what kind of growth and the scope the candidate can expect with that internship. I think something else that they could also look at is, or something that would be really helpful for them to know beforehand, is how much face time are they going to get with other stakeholders in the organization? Would they have the opportunity to interact with either various functional managers or various line managers that may help with their overall development? Or would it be would they have interactions with, probably if they're working for a product or a service company, would they have interactions with the end user to really help cultivate and build that skill as well? So I think those are definitely some things that a candidate should look at. And I think one more thing that is kind of also important for candidates to look at is everything surrounding the logistics and the travel aspect of it, especially if you're also looking at some female candidates. For them, travel and logistics may not be the most feasible. An internship may not be very feasible where there is a lot of travel involved. But I think that's something that if they have that information beforehand, that's just an extra data point for them to make an informed decision with.
As well, if your internship is possibly unpaid, for you to consider the travel and the distance and where you need to live and things like that. And now to maybe flip this question on its head, what do you think? What do you look for in a successful internship candidate? And maybe we could start with Ketaki for this one.
Sure. I mean, in addition to your usual, like the alignment to the role requirements, and if the candidate has some prior technical skill or technical knowledge, I think what I would also look for are signs of initiative in a candidate. Are they being proactive enough to really talk about if there are certain expectations that need to be set, or if there's certain things in the organization that they're interested in or have an active or do want to learn about? They should be proactive enough to speak up about it, or be proactive enough to either challenge a way something's done, or maybe think of a way that a process can be improved. I think when they take up that initiative, not only does it show that the candidate's proactive, but it also shows that they do come with sort of that critical thinking ability, that problem solving mindset, and they're willing to think out of that box and go the extra mile. And I think that makes a huge difference between the candidate who's really willing to do this and put them, kind of put their foot forward and step out of their comfort zone to do this, versus a candidate who comes in day out and is just sort of going through the process of the internship and is just doing the work that's handed to them.
Thanks, Keiki. As we mentioned before, yeah, it's not a given that that an internship leads to a full-time position. So this is really helpful for you if you're, I mean, particularly there was one person who's undertaking an internship right now, something for you to consider. And now maybe we can hear from Prashant on this.
I mean, just adding to what Katie was saying, two things which I particularly look whenever I talk to potential interns or fellows coming is if they are aware of what they want to do. So that background research they have done in terms of what kind of work, for example, my organization is doing. And if not, we just have that orientation session with them in terms of what we actually do and try to understand their skill sets. So there's a match, and we know once they are in what will be the journey and who will be the mentors, if not mentors, which team they'll be working with, and so on, because that helps on back-end work. Another thing which definitely we look for is a more long-term engagement rather than a short-term engagement, which means that anything beyond 3 months or beyond is a engagement where it's meaningful for both parties again. So just wanted to add these two.
Thanks, Prashant. And yeah, sometimes that can be the kind of decision point, I think, is how long you're able to stay with that internship. So key in whenever you're applying to different positions, whether you can indicate how long you would be able to stay for. Our next question is for Prashant. Oh no, sorry. I keep jumping ahead of myself, is for Ketaki and Rachel. So maybe Rachel will take this one on first. What is conducive of a strong employer/intern relationship? What is good practice in this field?
So good practice has got to start with clear communication of all things, and that's written communication, verbal communication. If you feel like you're not getting that off an employer, then it's okay to say that, because they don't always necessarily know. So being clear about your needs, as well as them being clear about their needs, is the basis of any successful arrangement in life, as I see it. So if you've got a clear kind of plan of what you're doing going forward, don't agree to anything you're not sure about as well. If you're not sure about something on the plan, ask. You can ask what that means. I think a lot of people get hung up on this idea that if they don't know everything and they're not perfect, that they somehow won't, get the opportunities going forward. But actually, it's asking the questions that shows that you're invested, that shows that you're interested, that shows that you want to do a really good job with this. So making sure you kind of have that dialogue with whoever is kind of squiring your apprenticeship through, so to speak, is the crucial aspect in this, but also having really productive relationships with all the people in your working environment, using it again as an opportunity to develop those soft skills, how you're interacting with different people in different kind of environments, and how you're overcoming those different challenges are what ultimately build your confidence in a role and your confidence in your future career. So I hope that answers the question, Sean.
Yeah, I think it's true. You need to approach the internship. I mean, not only for building confidence later, but with confidence, and not to see yourself as a much lower rung than everyone else in the organization, to be able to engage with them and have open conversation. I think that's the key to being clear with what your intentions are and what you hope you can get out of the internship. And I don't think people should be afraid about speaking on those. And Kiki, do you have anything else to add to this?
Definitely. I think one of it would be just in agreeing with Rachel, really have a clear plan of where you want your internship to go and what are you expecting to learn out of your internship. And if there isn't a plan that's already in place by your organization, don't be afraid to speak up, speak to your line manager, whoever your internship head is, and sit down and actually draft a plan that has, that has certain matrices that help you be able to track your progression as well, and for you to be able to understand what learnings you've gained. So that's definitely something that I agree with Rachel. But in addition to that, I think what's also conducive to a good relationship is one, what sort of contribution have you been able to make to the organization, and on the flip side, what have you learned from the organization? Have you learned any tangible skills or learnings that you can actually use moving forward in your career, or you could, you could leverage your learnings and your experience with that particular internship? I think that would be very conducive of uh, a good intern and client and employee relationship. But it's also about how much you've taken the opportunity to interact with those around you, and if you've been able to also build your network within that organization as well.
Yeah, and in that case, sometimes big organizations can be helpful because you have so many open connections there and opportunities to network over lunch or after, during work, etc.
Definitely.
Yeah. And now that we've heard what a good relationship looks like, maybe we can hear from Prashant, who's had many of these good relationships with interns, about what your interns, Prashant, at SELCO Foundation have said was the most beneficial thing that they drew from the opportunity or experience.
One thing which I think cuts across anyone who comes in at that position is a kind of field exposure. I mean, if you're able to kind of give them field exposure to the right users, to the right partners on ground on the project which they are working in, it just creates that feedback loop directly with the, if I may just put term problem statement. So if they're working on a problem statement, it just gives them direct feedback and access to what exactly it is, gets first-hand experience on it. So that has really helped them. Second thing is the right orientation when they just about just takes getting them on board really smoothly, and then letting them know that they can ask right questions and it's not an alien environment for them, making them feel comfortable. That has been something which has really worked out for us. Third thing which has worked out for most of them has also been check-ins at right time. Yes, the person you're working with in the organization might not be able to give you 100% of the time, but if what has helped us is basically putting right deliverables with the timelines and clear idea of what the outcomes would look like, and then having right check-ins from time to time, maybe weekly check-in or fortnightly check-in has helped depending on the time of the internship. And one thing which we do whenever anyone is about to go, we do a presentation of that intern in terms of what they have done and what is the contribution of that intern to the organization, to teams beyond just they were directly interacting with. So that has also helped. And then it just gives them good feedback. And then they also like to show their work. And that way, it's a win-win.
Thanks, Prashant. And I think key to understanding what you should be getting out of the internship is also what you can bring to the internship and what you can how you can help the organization so that you can be successful in the experience. And so another question for Prashant leading on this is, what value do you think the interns bring to the organization?
It might be really broad, but then if you really look at it, it can be seen from two different ways. One is the kind of personality that the intern brings to the table. Just as Ketaki and I think Rachel was also mentioning, right? When you're in the environment, if the intern is open and then really curious and they challenge the team, that is the best combination, we'd say. What I mean challenging by the team is not actually understanding the process first and then giving right inputs, and then challenging also in a healthy way, if I'm clear on that aspect. That is something which we really look for. Another thing is just the fresh ideas, and then sometimes it's also offloading a lot of work, not in a bad way, but in terms of if a person is coming with a very specific skill set. For example, we have a chartered accountant working as an intern with us, which is really helping us look at though we are a not-for-profit, helping us look at the interventions which we are doing on ground, and then coming out with right business models for that, which the team would have taken time otherwise. So bringing in that right skill sets is also something which the interns bring to table. If I have to put it in a value term, basically, if they are open, if they are curious, I think that's good enough to have them in the team.
Okay, easy for everyone to remember. Open and curious is how you approach your internships. And Rachel brought in something in the chat just on Prashant's last point. She says, if you don't mind me reading it, Rachel. Regular scheduled progress check-ins with your line manager and mentor create good habits to show that you have done, but also reflect what you have done, but also reflects back to what you have learned. This self-reflective aspect is crucial to building the skills to manage your own lifelong learning and to truly own your career. So I think some really great advice from Rachel there. And that kind of leads us to the third question I had for Prashant on this kind of relationship, about support that you provide to the interns. So Rachel was mentioning this and you mentioned this in the progress reports, but anything else you would like to add to that?
No, I think it's just the same thing. I mean, seeing them as someone who is coming, I mean, understanding from those aspects, right expectations, right? What I was talking about earlier, right from onboarding process to before they even take up the internship, setting right expectations on a call, giving that right orientation. Once they come in, just if your organization is not big enough that you're in a big building with thousands of people, it's good to have one-on-one, just everyone just goes and says hi, taking them and introducing each team members so that they feel comfortable. Having these right check-ins, articulating what is actually expected out, because most of the times in daily firefight, what happens is we might get into different directions. But if the articulation, that's why I'm saying this because of experience, if the articulation is really well in terms of what is the right output the organization expecting, and that the intern has understood, I think that's very great, because what happens between that is just the process. Because both the organizations, especially from intern point of view, also they will see it as something they have contributed, which is meaningful enough for the organization, which gives all those experiences we were talking about, building the right skill sets, right kind of networking for the interns. I think if the process is right, I think learnings will definitely come.
Great, thanks, Prashant. And it's great to hear that employers are thinking about all of this when employing interns and really giving support where it's needed. And this next question I had was originally meant for Max, but Max won't be able to join us today. So if anyone wants to jump in here, I'm just going to share a bit about my own experience. But if anyone who has done internships in the past or had experience working with interns, feel free to jump in after. But I just, I know for me, my internship was key in getting my current role, what I mentioned before. I applied for several months with no luck, but before getting my internship and soon after completing, I received several interviews. So I felt like I clearly identify what the difference was after completing my internship. So I think also all my internships laid a fantastic foundation for my work ethic, getting me used to office culture and exposing me early on to a lot of the work that I do now. Through, I mean, like, maybe I wasn't doing the full task before, but at least I had exposure to that, knew what the processes were. And the question was, how do you view your internship when looking back on your career? What role, if any, did your internship play in the pursuit of or delivery of subsequent roles? So does anyone have any experience they'd like to share on this from the panelists or from anyone in the room? It'd be great to hear some firsthand internship experience, what they felt they drew from it.
I can't speak as an intern myself, but I can speak as having supported interns, and they have definitely ended up being our leaders and champions, you know, a few years after the internship. So it's viewing this as a long-term thing. This could be a building block to a future career. I'll be quiet now because I think Ketaki's got a point.
Thanks, Rachel. I think I'm just going to speak to my own internship experience from many, many years ago. A lot of what you learn that time, because you're so young, also you have the extraordinary ability to just absorb information like a sponge. So a lot of it that you learn during those times really comes in handy. You never know when. So I think one particular internship of mine comes to mind when I was working with Grant Thornton in Sydney, and this was, I think, in 2016. And at that point of time, my internship there is now very closely related to what I do now. And at that point of time, you didn't know it, but right now, all those skills and all the learnings that you've learned at that point of time just keep, they've come flooding back to me. So I think it's very crucial for any internship. I think the skills and the experience that you learn there in some way or the other do end up being very helpful for you in the future down the line in your career.
Thanks, Kiki. Yeah, I think internships can be lots of people's first steps into the job market, and it's a learning experience. And like all learning curves, you start really steep, so you learn a lot in your internship, and I think it can really build a great foundation for later on, no matter how far away from your internship you are. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add to this? No?
I can just sorry. No, I was just saying, looking back, I mean, it's all reflective as we're saying, right? In terms of you are in day-to-day, but then once you reflect back, my kind of experiences, what I have been in the fellowship or the early on experiences that I did was very different than what I do second. But then the soft skills, which are basically people how to even build relationships, that has helped it. Ethics, which you were talking about, right? How to write emails, how to talk to stakeholders in different way. One time you're talking to an end user, which might be from a different background, and another time you're talking to a higher government official. In the same day, you have to shift spectrums. That is something which has really helped build the character in long term, if I reflect back and
So you did one as well, Prashant. Seems like lots of people here are doing internships. It seems like a common early step in people's career. So it's great to hear that. Next up, we have a poll for our participants. And it's going to pop up on your screen in the moment, but it's what are your opinions on the question? I just want to know what your opinions on the question are. The question is, should internships be paid? There we go. And yep, just let me know if you think yes, no. I guess so far we have yes, everyone's saying yes. But I guess yeah, yeah. Okay, looks like I think almost everyone in the room has voted, and it seems like a yes. And I just wanted to ask the panelists here whether they had an opinion on that, if you had any.
I'll speak from my own point of view, is that yes, internships should be paid on an ethical basis and on an equity basis, because if we want to make internships available for as many people as possible, then we need to make them financially available for as many people as possible. And that's certainly something that Energy Saving Trust is going to be doing in the next year. So, you know, if you're looking for an internship, maybe watch this space. We shall have some opportunities coming up in the coming year.
Very exciting, Rachel. If anyone doesn't know, Jackie and I also work at Energy Saving Trust, so it's exciting that we'll be able to have interns on board. And I mean, we've already had Emil, but even more involvement will be great. I know there are different points of view on this, so does anybody else want to jump in on the question?
Sure. I mean, as a practice, we have been doing paid internships right from the start. But I also, given the fact few organizations not be able to pay just from the constraint point of view. And in those times, the platforms which you were mentioning, there are a lot of aggregators who help kind of develop that bridge between an organization, and those are again funded separately, and they take up the cost of the interns. So again, those are available, especially now more than ever in this digital world where you can connect and then definitely avail that. But still, if it doesn't work out, it's always good to ask in terms of what can be paid. It might not be just salaries. I've seen organizations giving space to live and cover their food and local travel expenses, which means that you might not have any in your pocket. But again, I understand those only few privileged interns who has that family support will be able to take. So there is a spectrum at both. And organization and intern need to understand both of it. I think a honest, clear conversation around it will go a long way, and it will not hurt anything.
I agree. I think if it's something you're concerned about with an employer when you're applying, it's great to speak up on it. I mean, don't feel afraid because of, I mean, you might not get the opportunity if you bring up the possibility of being paid, but I I think it's really important that you discuss this with the employer. Ketaki, I just saw you unmuted yourself. Did you want to feed in on this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, coming from a recruiter's perspective, we've definitely seen organizations that have, been willing to pay their internships or are in the position to have paid interns, have definitely seen a lot more engagement from their candidates, because I also feel that the candidates view it as a sign of the organization being them being recognized for the work that they're putting in as well. So that is something that I would definitely agree that internships should be paid. And again, speaking to Prashant's point, where a lot of the organizations are not in a position, in a financial position to be able to pay their interns, I think that's where organizations like a lot of your government funded organizations or government funded projects come into place, similar to something that what my organization Shortlist has been running for the past 3 years with the UK government, is where we're also providing a lot of the companies, the employers that are working for support in terms of being able to provide these hired employees with some sort of stipend support as well. So definitely would agree to the fact that internships do need to be paid.
Okay, seems like we have a unanimous feeling in the room that internships should be paid. I agree as well. I always think internships should be paid. You do see some debates on places like LinkedIn talking about it, but great to hear. The next question, I think, we have a question in the chat, but I think Rachel answered it in the chat about internships from international candidates from Energy Saving Trust, and looks like we're looking into it post-Brexit. The next question, I think, is mostly directed at Ketaki. There's also, I thought I would share a little bit about my experience with this. This is about when searching for internships. And when I was searching for my internship, the best place to look, I think it's highly dependent on the sector you're looking for. But there are a lot, I was looking on international development job boards because I was looking for an international development position. And I was always looking on those boards, but there's also forums where they'll talk about the different places to find the best positions. And I personally think the best way, if you know what you want to do, is to and you know what kind of organization you want to work for, is to find those organizations, look on their website, see if they have an opportunity, and even if they don't have one listed, if you really want to work for an organization, I would say email them, get in contact, see if they'd be willing to take someone on. But I think this would be a question best directed at Ketaki. Would you like to answer this?
Sure, I'd love to. I think there are quite a few ways we can go about doing this. The most probably obvious one would be LinkedIn, but candidates should be able to know how to actually manipulate their LinkedIn in order to find the connections and the people. So especially if you're looking at university students, I would probably recommend that they go and they look up the university online on LinkedIn, see what kind of alumni that they have, what organizations these alumni are working at, and then reach out to them, because then they have that common point of contact through the university, and reach out to them and really leverage that network. It can be something as simple as sending them a connection request and asking them to meet up for a coffee chat, and really just wanting to know what kind of work they're doing, what kind of work their organization does, and whether or not that would fit into their larger career goals. And then approach the topic of whether or not they do have some sort of internship program or not. That's definitely something that I would recommend. And like Sean rightly said, research on organizations that you're interested in, what you'd want to work at, look at their website, see if they have an internship program, reach out to them, even if their website isn't clear on whether or not you have that. And also, a lot of universities organize networking events and career fests. So definitely go there. That also helps you build your network, but also increase your visibility as a candidate as well to the organizations that do come and participate in these fairs. And one more would be also industry associations. So for clean energy associations like GOGLA, or some of the other women in energy associations that often have free membership, would advertise internships or jobs in their newsletters. So that way you would get sort of priority information beforehand. So I think that's also something that can be leveraged as well. So these are some of the ways that you can go about looking for an internship.
Thanks, Ketaki. I think a really well-rounded view of this. It gives people a lot of resource. And remember, LinkedIn and your network and building your network is an invaluable resource for finding new opportunities. Okay, and hopefully that's helpful for anyone trying to find an internship now. I have one final question that I have laid out, but everyone feel free to send some questions in the chat now, particularly now. We have some time. And maybe we can go back to those ones that were listed on our Mentimeter. But I just have one final question for all the panelists. And it's one message to those participants considering doing an internship right now. What are your closing remarks for everyone? And maybe we can start with Prashant.
Yeah, I might be repeating myself, but again, just from looking at various interns out, one is, again, if they are in the system, then if they are open enough and then explore opportunities and not stick to, say, and give some leeway to the organizations like us. I'm pretty much sure in large organizations, you might have very much structured roles, but there are smaller organizations anyway, which work with 50 to 100 people together, where especially given some background to work, which is very dynamic and then cuts across various fields of work, there can be opportunities beyond than what you have come in the organization, and just being open for that, being receptive to that will help, is what I would want.
Thanks, Prashant. Can we hear from Ketaki next? Sorry.
Sure. I think my advice is something very similar along the lines of what Prashant has said. It's a time for candidates to learn and to grow. So I think the one advice I would have to give them is really don't say no to trying anything. And I think it's also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think this is the best time for you to learn and grow, and also just learn from your mistakes. And I think just on a lighter note, really make the most of your opportunity, but also just have fun while you're doing it. I think this is the best time for, like I said, and I've said it time and again, it's not only going to be one of the starting steps to your career, but it's also just a time where your capacity to learn and your capacity to absorb information would probably be at its maximum threshold at that point of time. So really just don't say no to any opportunities, and really get that experience and experiment as well with the kind of roles you want to do, the kind of functions you want to do.
Thanks, Ketaki. And I see you put something in the chat about a guidebook for entry-level candidates. Perhaps you could send that to me, and then I can send it to all the participants today through the follow-up email.
Sure, I'd love to.
I think that'd be a great resource for everyone.
Definitely.
Rachel, any closing remarks?
Yeah, just building on what the other guys have said, really. Use internships as an opportunity to take hold of your career. If you can take on the attitude of, this is a lifelong learning journey, your career is all about taking ownership of your learning and about where you want to go with that learning ultimately. And hopefully that will pay the bills and kind of keep the roof over your head and things like that going as well. But if you can keep that focus on your learning, you're more likely to accelerate your career. And I just wanted to give a shout shout out to some free Open University courses that people can do. You know, if you're looking for ways to kind of expand your CV, I found it's a really useful resource in terms of it can teach about all sorts of different things. So if you're looking to differentiate yourself and you're maybe struggling to get that first internship and you're wanting to kind of put something extra on your CV, you could do some of these kind of introductory, I think they do advanced level courses as well, just to kind of, you know, get that learning all into one place, to kind of tie it all together so that it's consistent and coherent for you, rather than it just being in a textbook at university or something. Showing there's ways to kind of integrate it into the workplace can be a really good way to show off both your knowledge and the way you could practically apply your skills. So that's my kind of last little bit. And also you may have seen on there, we do currently have some vacancies for apprenticeships coming up. So apprenticeships aren't just available for people who are, you know, having no degree. You could potentially do that if you've got a degree as well. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, that we have a current vacancy if anybody's interested in internal marketing particularly. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Rachel. And again, if you want to share those Open University courses, you can just pass those on to me and then I'll pass them on to the rest of the crew. Thank you, everyone. I think we didn't get any questions in the chat, but maybe we can just quickly touch on these ones that we had on the Mentimeter. I think, oh, did you not see that? No, let me see. Okay, and I think we're just running out of time, but let me just run through some of these. And I think first, maybe one for Rachel. What is the connection between class learning and the real world / industry business environment?
Yes, finding ways to tie those two things together via things like internships and apprenticeships is a really good way to do it, because you get that theoretical knowledge of how it should work, and then you get how it works in the real world. And there's sometimes some real key differences you'll find when you kind of come across these things. And actually, you know, drawing on the experience of a workforce, getting that kind of insight from people who are already in the business can be a really good way of solidifying that learning. So internships can provide a real crucial building block to help you accelerate your career going forward by taking that theoretical stuff and letting you put it into practice. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think personally, I felt like I learned more in my internship times. I mean, even though they're much shorter than in my university degree. I mean, as it pertains to work. I think a lot of university can be theoretical, and it's nice to see it all in practice. Next, maybe for Ketaki or Prashant, what are some of the points that we should not miss when writing a cover letter? Any suggestions, or anyone open to the floor? Does anybody have any input on this?
I could take this one. I think for a cover letter, I think something that candidates should not miss is especially why they'd like to work for the organization. I think that is something that a lot of the times candidates do tend to miss, and it just becomes a generic letter about their background. So they should really tailor it to each organization and speak about some of the specific things as to why they'd want to work for that particular organization. Is it a particular kind of program or a particular field that they're doing? Is it a particular project that they're interested in? So the amount of detail that you know about the organization, I think that would really show in your cover letter. And I think that's something that they should really look at, because then that just shows the amount of detailed research you've done in the organization, and also in a way speaks to the amount of interest you have to working in that organization.
Thanks, Kiki. Yeah, research before you write your cover letter, and don't send out a generic cover letter that to all the organizations. Tailor it. One key thing I always got advice on that is to use some words from the job ad in your cover letter. Always helpful for them to connect the two. And maybe last question for Prashant. I think you're the closest to this. How do they work? How do internships work in engineering firms? Can you intern with a prospect getting a job at a company? How does that work?
I think again from my experience before, and then I'm very far off that sector, more than 7 years now. But, how it has worked for me before, I think most of the time, especially in Indian context where I'm from, right, most of the engineering internships at that point of time was unpaid. But then what really helped was basically that acumen. Also, someone wrote and asked about how do you put class learning to business environment. So I think there the role is pretty much defined, and you are actually kind of betting on your skill sets, and then is hired for your skill sets. And definitely, if you do that well and you get that right recommendation, that really adds up to his CV, because someone also asking if the internship experience is taken as also like work experience. So in that sector, definitely it does add up to that, and you can definitely talk about your project and what was your specific input to the project. Most of the time, that also converts in a full-time opportunity, especially for the larger firms and larger engineering firms, because that also they see it as one of the entry level for their human resource forward. And then that is also the time when the company or the organization is assessing your skills and then see the fit in their team. That's what I have.
Thanks, Prashant. And I think all the other questions were touched on today at some point. So I just have, oh, oops, I'm having the same problem. Let me just stop sharing my screen for a second, and we have one more poll for all of our participants. So this will just come up in a second while I fix this. There we go. Okay, seems like everyone so far is more interested in internships following this experience, which is good to hear. I'm glad you are keen on participating in one now and looking for the opportunities. I hope you feel equipped to kind of get out there and start seizing those opportunities. Yeah, everyone agrees. Okay. And then as usual, we just have this regular feedback survey. If you could provide some feedback, it just takes a minute or two. Just follow this QR code or enter this URL into your browser and answer it there. That would be really helpful for us. It helps us improve these sessions. And this will also be shared in the follow-up email if you are watching the recording or you didn't get time today. But it would be great if you could all fill that in. I'll just leave that up for a second so that you can all get the link. And then finally, as usual, we have a newsletter. So this is great for everyone to keep up to date with what's going on in the design challenge, how you can stay involved, you can keep up with all the updates, you know what's coming up, and we have some great content in there as well, created by the comms team. And Jackie's put the links to both of those in the chat, so if you can just click those and enter them in your browser. But otherwise, thank you all for coming today. Thank you to our panelists. It's been great to hear from you. You've been great. And I hope we see you soon. I hope you all had a good time. And I think that'll end it for today.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.